Well, hello.
Hi, Sam. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Dangle and Dot.
We are. I'm Dangle.
And I'm Dot.
And we're so glad.
And I'm Sam.
And we have a friend with us today.
We have a friend with
Someone
us.
very near and dear and has just charmed our hearts so much that we want to share him.
Yes, we do.
The rest of you in our Dangle and Dot
In
world.
yes.
Yeah, so Simon, will you like to just introduce yourself in terms of, I don't know, a little bit about your journey with dementia, kind of who you are, what you feel like you are at this point, and why you're here?
Well, I'm here because of two amazing women that I've had been able to meet on this unexpected journey. Didn't plan it, right? So I'm Sam Simon. I live in McLean, Virginia, but I'm from El Paso, Texas, and have been in Vegas as a young man. My dad was a traveling salesman, and Vegas was a stop. So that was fun when I was a little kid. But I've been living in the Washington, D.C. area since 1970. We have two adult children. I'm married to my wife, Susan, now for 55 years. And, I've had an astounding and wonderful career. I've been very fortunate as far as I'm concerned. I was one of the first lawyers back in 1970. The reason we came to Washington area was to work for Ralph Nader, the consumer advocate. And I've written books about some of that stuff a long time ago. And it's been a long journey. I was in a Washington character. I had a company. I sold it. I worked off and on in New York. I would be working actually almost half time in New York for a nonprofit. I was doing some theater work. I guess the best way, I'm jumping a little bit because we don't have, all that much time.
I would say that's an amazing career.
I would say that's pretty darn good, Sam. Awesome.
I mean, the checklist, yes, is incredible to lead us to your journey now.
Where you are now.
Yeah, well, I started noticing, so I'm 76 now, and, I'm reminded in this moment to say that people will tell us after diagnosis that we will have been aware of a memory problem longer than we were before we were noticed,
right,
or notified, before we were diagnosed. And I was troubled by my memory for a few years. I'm blessed with a life partner, a wife who has this great memory. And so sometimes you just don't know. Oh, well, yours is better than mine. A couple of things started to happen. I developed something that was odd, and it was experiencing what I call a black wall in my head. And I was once asked whether it was a hallucination, and it's actually by an intern who was in the office of we were with my doctor, and there was a student in the appointment. He said, well, was that black wall in your head? When that was a hallucination? He said, no, it was real. Of course, I didn't have a real wall in my head. But when I was struggling to remember things, I would try to remember it sounds funny, by looking to the right in my head for the memory. And all I experienced was very vividly this infinite black wall behind which it just went on forever, and there was nothing behind it, and the memory was gone, and I wanted to find it. And these all happened in an instant, right? It was like boom, but it began to scare me. So started telling my internist. He said, all right, let's go get diagnosed. Okay. He was resisting it for a while. I was considered a high-performing individual, a professional, doing all this stuff. And people would say, no, you don't have a memory issue, but you're just fine. Well, I went through all these fancy tests and x-rays and stuff, and I was diagnosed then with what's known as mild cognitive impairment. And I remember, you know, I went to the neuropsychologist to get I went by myself to get they said I could, the doctor, the neuropsychologist says, well, I have the report ready. I can give it to your neurologist. You can come in and I'll give it to you. So I'll come in and get it. And, it said I had a mild cognitive impairment. And, I was, yes, I'm not crazy. I have a diagnosis. I'm right, right? It was odd.
No.
I am
It was
not.
an odd sort of It was an odd sort of reaction to be happy that I had this diagnosis
I'm sure they
because
don't.
people were telling me,
No, I get it.
no, there is something wrong, right?
Yes, that's a good point, right? To realize there's
Or to
actually
find the opposite. So many early detection is so important. And lots of times people find out, no, it isn't that, it's this. So it can go
Right,
either
it could have been
way,
something
right?
else.
But yes.
yes.
Yeah, right, but to go through it and a couple of things. I was given a medication. I don't want to use necessarily say what it is. It is slightly off label for this, but it took the wall away.
Hmm.
I'm taking a medication. It's normally considered an antidepressant. And I don't think anybody thought I was depressed. I was anxious, maybe because of
Right.
what was going on. But in Europe, this pill is for memory issues. But it didn't restore memory, but it took the wall away. And again, when you're diagnosed, right, and you begin to realize it, and I look back, and it'd been obvious. What do you mean obvious? So I'm a guy, I had a public affairs company. I traveled to New York for work and stuff and kept everything, I could know what my company was doing in my head and read the financial reports. I had been unable to do my cooking for over a year. I did it every week when I was, and I don't know why, right? Well, Sunday it's time to do my cooking, but I'll just put it off. And why am I putting it off? Because it becomes too difficult. But I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
Why? But so these are parts of my journey, and it took. And so, look, the other half is not only do I want to find, and I got a second opinion, by the way. I was not happy, and I heard of this from other. We're going to spend hours talking about the neurology industry. They're not equipped.
We're not going to try that yet.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I'll tell you, most neurologists are not equipped to
No.
handle follow-up.
No.
You get a diagnosis because my neurologist, when my wife's with me and we're in the office, he says, yes, you have mild cognitive impairment, good news, no black tangles in your brain, which I had no idea what that meant at the time.
Right.
And I'm trying to talk to him. He's given us maybe a whole half hour for this appointment. Said, well, what's next? And what am I supposed to do? And what's the treatment? And how, I've now got this diagnosis. And he finally got frustrated and said, there's only one journey after this. You want to know what your journey is? Well, there's only one way, and it's down. And here's a prescription for Aricept. I've got to go to my next appointment.
Wow.
And I don't think I'm alone, right?
Oh, I got the similar.
She got the same one.
Yeah, similar treatment. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's important for people to know if that happens, there is better. There is. I mean, first of all, don't stop. I ended up going to Georgetown Memory Clinic to both confirm the diagnosis. Now they do studies, so I jump in whenever there's a study or a drug trial. I've been volunteering. And somebody once said to me, I'll mention one little other thing that was going on. I don't like to tell too many people. I was driving the wrong way
Between
down
us.
one-way street.
In the
Yeah,
world.
just between us two.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was driving the wrong way down one-way streets. So, uh, but I still have my license. The medicine has helped. My wife drives with me a lot.
Okay.
And it's been good to know one, I'm not alone. That's why I found the Cleveland Clinic dementia friendly conversations. It took a little while, but the most important thing for me really was to be able to listen to other people. I think you've heard me say,
Yeah.
it's just so helpful to hear how other people deal with this. That I am not alone, and there's no like, oh, this is how it's going to be. It's different for all of us, but as far as I can tell. There's no
Right.
no
The most
standard
helpful that I
thing.
have been through too, Sam, is the support, and there are different support groups, but this dementia conversations where it's caregivers and people walking
Yes.
through. It's such a multi-dimensional approach that you do walk away. See, if we can see the other side, how important is that? Or if they
Right.
can see us, how important is that?
And learning from one another. I mean, just being in the healthcare profession, Sam, I have learned so much from you when you describe to me in such poignant words, and your ability to communicate and articulate things
Yeah.
is just so beautiful. That to understand, seeing that black wall, what it felt like, what it seemed like. I mean, you put us in the play of your mind, which is so beneficial. And I just love that you are sharing like this and inspiring, and that and
It's a
having
walk
these
away for
groups.
people that maybe can't confront it, up close and personal, but can take something from what's being said here today. That is our
And
What has surprised me,
Yeah.
what surprised me, and I want to give a shout out to a group of people, is how people often treat it as shameful, are afraid to admit it, who back off and go into the corner. But I spent many years, over 15 years, on the board of a nonprofit in California called the World Institute on Disability. And if anybody's seen the movie Crip Camp, it features people who founded the World Institute. They were among those in the Crip Camp were the people who founded the World Institute on Disability. And there I learned that it's differently abled is one word. People to work there, you had to have a significant disability. I was a minority. I was on the board, and only a small group on the board would be people without a disability, or at least not one we knew yet. But the idea of being functioning and living proudly in the world as we are,
as we
and
all
what has surprised me,
with
and is what surprised me. But what surprised me now is how few people are willing. I, 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 I may carry it a little bit too much on my sleeve. It's not that I'm proud to have it, but I don't want it to diminish me. And so I bring it up. I tell people I am Sam Simon now with early stage Alzheimer's, and that's how I am in the world. And I want the world to enable me to function as best as I am able to function as me.
Yes.
And that means the world may have to change a little bit.
I get it, Sam.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As you.
We are where we are.
Yeah.
Yes. Acceptance
And
for where we are. Yes.
yeah, and maybe we're a little bit slower, and maybe it happened this morning, and
Takes a
it
little
happened
bit
this
longer.
morning. Well, it happened this morning, and I went back and looked. There was an event that I thought was at 2 o'clock Eastern time today. Well, it was at 11 o'clock Eastern time today. But I had fixed it in my mind. It was 2 o'clock. And the fact that I got 6 emails, I went back and looked at them. Oh shit! Sorry,
Oh,
it did say
Where
11.
your mind was, and you didn't see them in time, right? I know the drill.
And and the deal is, yes, it could happen to anybody, but we know it happens to us a lot. And I often, I go to, when I'm in the doctor's or other, you've got to remind me repeatedly of the appointment. My wife works with me. We get them in the, we put them in the calendar. We put it on her calendar, and we have them remind us, and we get the phone calls because somehow it can go somewhere else, right?
It's
It can
all tangled
disappear.
up, doesn't it? Yeah, misdirect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Nancy, it gets all tangled up.
Tangled into tangles. I know. It'll be revolution. We've got to come up with a device.
We do.
Or some system for people living with dementia, that is.
Because the second before you go on the air, that's when suddenly I can't get on. I've worked so hard. You know the feeling, Sam, right? You work so hard to get right to that point, and then something, it isn't there. Where did it go?
So I'm going to do a little brag. I was actually on the Oprah Winfrey Show once. I was a guest.
Oprah!
On technology and how to do this and how consumers and how to deal with change in technology. I had to call American Express recently to help me download a file.
Oh.
I tell you this as the gap that develops. People don't quite, I don't know if they can see it or not, but this isn't, and then the expectations we have for ourselves.
Yes.
It takes me a little while to say, I should be able to do this. Mm-hmm. This is so friggin' simple. And everybody has different strengths. Mine was technology, and now, I can't. I have a hard time, and I have to call for help. The other way to say this, I signed up for the Geek Squad, and I don't tell anybody that Sam Simon, the technology guy, that the Washington Post featured as a gadget guru, has to have the Geek Squad help him.
That's so grand.
Yeah, edit it out. No, but the important.
Refreshing.
You are so refreshing. It's like a fresh. It's to be able to, to laugh at it a little bit.
We gotta laugh, don't we? We do have to laugh.
Yes, and I love you guys because you modeled that and helped me. No, and seriously, I mean, this is not just because you're doing it, but the fact that you do this and that you have this attitude has helped me see a way forward and reaffirm. I'll say, yes, I have this inclination, and then my work with the disability community has helped me. But I can see that it's possible because it is an awful word, right? By itself, there's no kidding ourselves. I don't want anybody to listen to this and think we're kidding, that we don't know.
No,
that
we're not
the word is big and scary. And but and I don't know, but you can think about it. This, in some ways, it is such a hidden part of our society.
It is hidden.
That when I hear the word dementia, when I did it, I would have. What's the image that popped in my head? There's this person sitting in a nursing home who's slobbering in a chair. And that's not true.
Not true.
That is a place we may end up. Just like somebody with cancer may be the one in the bed with all those tubes hanging out of them. Those are realities. But the journey there can be
we've got so much life
full.
In it,
and I want everyone listening, as much as you joke about your, follies in technology now and, calendaring, but at the same time, I see both you and Nancy, our dangle here, in this state of creativity. And here you are with what's been presented in front of you, and you have your book you're promoting.
Talk a minute about your book.
Thank you. Well, I've been also the caregiver, actually, in my life. And,
It's beautiful.
In 2000,
It is. Yes, and I experienced a very similar one.
In 2000, Susan, my wife, now 55 years, was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And as in every medical story, in every story, our journey was unique. It started out with, oh no, it's not cancer. That's old scar tissue because he had a biopsy a few years ago. Oh, then we go to the doctor's appointment. Yes, it's stage 3. And then they said, oh, but great news, it's not in your nodes. And they said, oh, we made a mistake. Yes, it's in a lot of your nodes. I'll go dark. And then after a double mastectomy, the doctor thought he found yet another lump in her chest. Susan's mother died of advanced breast cancer the year in 1967, the year after, right around our first wedding anniversary. And then my mother died a few years later from breast cancer. So I immediately went to, this is my wife's fate. And so I had it took me 11 years. Is that right? 2011. 11 years for this story to come out. And I started because I was doing improv theater. I was doing it as a hobby. I was doing it as a professional development. I was very lucky to have fallen into a group of actors, and because of my work in New York, I was really lucky to some really great teachers. And the improv, and they talk about in dementia,
yes,
by the way, and they go yes anding. The idea in improv is accepting all information given. We talk about this even today. We accept what it is, and we add information to it. And how do we live? And no, and I was one of my new insights that I get. I wrote this book, and I wrote the play in 2013. I've been performing almost 9 years now. The book came out just a few months ago, and I do book talks. I talk about this. It's funny how we get insights. We think we've done a play, we tell the story, yet there's still more to learn. And because Wright said the issue is how come, Susan, when she was going through it, says, I don't want anybody negative around me. I'm going to fight this thing. Only positive people. And of course, in my heart, I was convinced she was gone. How did it happen that that she couldn't sniff me out, that she couldn't know that I wasn't that strong guy? I was going through this it's in the book, this terrible fear. And it helped me understand why it took so long for me to understand it. That there's some things that we, in order to be there for my wife then, I had to put it so deep inside of me. I had to bury that experience, the fear of it, the terror of it, which was real. And now but there's two sides to that. So Susan and I add a little humor here. Susan and I, this is me. I fell in love with my work. I like to go out. I like to perform. I wrote the book, and I would come into one of our anniversaries, and I said, I got an idea. Let's go up to New York. Let me do a performance, and we'll go out to dinner someplace. And she's crying. I said, Suzanne, there really wasn't a happy time in my life. I want us to do happy things for our anniversary.
Yeah.
Happy camp.
Happy camp.
So there was this part of, right, will I be able to remember my lines? It's harder. I'm not positive, but I do more of a talk. It's recorded now, and so
Okay.
we can do a video version, and so I'll do what I can do. Uh, you know, we don't know. I don't know. They 76. They said 5 to 10 years before it gets a lot worse. I should live to be 86. um,
Sam,
maybe so.
yeah,
Good.
can you either I can read or I think you can verbatim say the Us poem that you wrote in here?
So I wrote a poem called Yes, I Can. So it's kind of, it's interesting. I know that dangle there,
Is a poet.
Nancy.
It's a poem,
She's a poet too.
but she's going to be quiet and let you show it.
No, I know, but and people just experience of how something can
Go right
disappear.
out. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Where did you go?
Wait a minute. It was there and now it's gone. No,
I'm real.
I see you.
I
You got a name. I know.
or can we say it together? Us?
No, I got it. No, I got it.
Got it?
Ready?
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I wanted to say that maybe Nancy also knows that there's sometimes there are poems inside of us
Yes.
that become our anthems for so much. It's a theology. It's a view of life as well, and it's called Us. And its life exists in each of us as a form of the divine, a tangible essence of who we are. Love is when our essence became entwined, each an equal half of the other. I love you, simply awaken the us in you and me. I love you.
No, and we love you.
Yay.
Aw.
Do you make me do it and experience?
It was
Yeah.
beautiful.
And, I'm the most unlikely poet and playwright in the world. You just have to,
But I just admire this. It's almost like a different new chapter of you, right? That's very different from the other chapters,
Yes.
right? Very different. But this expression of life and your real being, that when we're human beings, that real being part of you that is coming out in such a beautiful way.
In such a beautiful way. Don't you think, Sam, that what we have done in our past, professionally, individually, within our families, have groomed us for where we find ourselves today?
yes.
Do you feel that way? 'Cause I very much feel that way.
So, yes, sometimes you'll get people say, oh, if only this changed, only that happened. So there is this phrase, it's a Jewish phrase, it's dayenu. Dayenu is, and it would be enough. So there's a song, the Egyptians took the Jews out of Israel, dayenu, that would be enough. If this is all there was, dayenu, this would be enough. And if any one thing in our life had been different, this would be different.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So that this is an affirmation of this idea that it took everything as it happened to take us to this point. And, I'm reminded there was an author talk on C-SPAN, and the author wrote something about this one of the King Henrys had killed himself. I don't know which one it was. And the interviewer said, "Well, what would have happened if he didn't kill himself?" And the author said, "Well, I wouldn't be here right now because I wouldn't have written this book and this, and it just struck me, if any one little thing in our life had changed,
Yeah.
we have no idea what today would be like.
Yeah.
And it's and as difficult as it is, or challenging as it is, but it's not unique. There are so many people in the world. We happen to be fortunate and have 2 wonderful children, 4 grandchildren, and we live the life as full as we can as we are today.
Yes.
And you guys know this. If we focus on the bad, how do we find joy in dementia? And how do we find joy in whatever, as we are? And if we have dementia, if we have breast cancer, how did Susan? She did not want any sad people around her. I would have to go. I would cry. But I would have to go out on the porch, outside the house. And I would not do it in the house. Right? And my daughter, who's now 50 something, would confess that she thought maybe her kids would never know their grandmother. That she would sit in the car in our driveway and cry. She knew too, she could not express that. So yes, we'll have our feelings. It's a way of, and we need to figure out to do this. I think dementia is, I don't know how to say this. I don't want this to be viewed as the worst in the world, because it's not. It is just who we are. It can be a little harder to cope because it is this cognitive thing, and it's figuring. But it's you get older and time goes fast anyway.
So fast.
But now it goes. I can't. Anyway, yeah. But you guys, I love your energy for this and what you do, and
we love yours.
Yeah,
Me too.
We have loved this conversation today, and I think you told me, or you said that your granddaughter says, "Grandpa goes deep."
yeah.
Goes in the water.
That's my.
Yeah,
I like that slogan.
That's wisdom, right there.
You are wisdom, and we're gonna leave.
Every once in a while, I catch myself and say, "Oh, Grandpa goes deep."
Yes.
Grandpa goes deep.
Yes,
and
yes.
we love that about you.
We do.
We really are fond. And
for every down, there's an up.
yes.
And so, if with dementia we meet people like you, Sam,
that
what a
inspire.
blessing!
Oh,
what a
gosh.
blessing!
What a wonder you are, and
it's mutual.
Definitely in our comments in our video have links to your book, this beautiful book, The Action Dance, and to be able to learn more about you. And you're just a bright light.
You are.
And
we're so glad you're here
that
today.
we met.
Well, and to you for what you guys do. Thank you so much.
Dangle and Dot and friends.
Some jazz hands for
jazz
Sam.
hands.
All right.
For Dangle and Dot.
We're on the spot.
We're on the spot. Bye.
Bye now.